Good evening. My name is Elmer Cecilio. I'm a solutions engineer for Talend. So I've been with Talend for almost 2 years in January. I came from IBM, and I think I know people here when I was still at IBM. So I was there for almost 10 years doing the integration pieces. So, after 10 years, I saw the light, like there's more future at Talend, and this is like a testament, and how our user group has grown as well from when I started, to the number of people who wants to attend. Actually, I think we had to close the attendance because the room's not going to fit it anymore, right? So there were a lot more people who wanted to join. So for today, so we're going to cover. Oh, and by the way, I'm based here. I'm local here. If I forgot to mention that, so I live in Markham. So we're going to talk about the data quality pieces or components within Talend. So being a meetup, there's kind of like an assumption that you've already used Talend or at least familiar with the ETL, so we don't need to go through all of that. But again, cover the pieces that would be useful on like a data quality project. So those would be the data preparation, the data quality and stewardship, and a fairly new data catalog. So we're gonna try and fit in a lot of that information in in an hour or so. But if you do have questions, just feel free to ask. That's okay. So some kind of a pre-slide in basically why people want to have good data, or not doing anything with data quality results in bad data and poor data operations, right? So 47% of newly created data records have like a critical error, and that critical error can be costly, right? Like if people are making decisions on that. There's a financial impact of about $15 million per company on data quality, and then it costs the whole U.S. economy for about $3.1 trillion per year. So it's a lot of money that's being lost just because of bad data, and it affects everyone, right? So I just like this slide, right? So and people do that in the business, right? Because you try to make business decisions based on bad informations, and then you end up it costing you a lot. Hopefully, in this case, that person did get hurt on that accident, right? So what we hear from our customers, it's top priority, it's complicated and lengthy, it's not my direct responsibility or do it for me. Yeah, it's not my problem. They're the ones who's running the reports. They're the ones submitting the data. That's not my issue. But it's really, it's a combination of both, business and IT to really resolve these particular issues. And you can't hide your head in the sand. You can no longer ignore your data quality issues. So what are the things that you need to do to reach the top quality standards? So one is uniqueness. So being able to identify your duplicate data. All right. So if there's duplicates, so if you're doing aggregation of your financial information, then you may be, double adding some information, right? Completeness. Do you need to enhance that information? Are you missing say for example, postal code, or you're missing some values? Where you need to do some of that lookup, for example. Do you know who the stewards are or who manages that particular data? Timelines, being able to deliver your reports in time or on demand, and really based on when the business requires it. Validity of that data, so it's basically continuous effort because as new data comes in, there's new data, bad data that gets added. You may hire temp employees for data encoders in the summer. So how come there's a spike of bad data, during that particular time? And maybe just because we do that particular hiring for temp or students, for example. Accuracy, being able to cleanse that information, again, removing duplicates, or getting some reference data from maybe like from address, for example, and having consistency or validation of your data. So these are all the things that you typically need to do to have your data quality standards. So within Talend, how do we do this? So we can do profiling. So if you're familiar with just the Open Studio of, who uses Open Studio, by the way, or just, yeah. but who also uses the, so just purely Open Studio only, like the, no, okay. So within Open Studio, as you know, that's the kind of the free download of the product. So there's Open Studio for big data, for integration, but there's also Open Studio for data quality. And so that Open Studio for data quality will provide you with the data profiling, right? So being able to go through your data and do column analysis, doing match analysis, and so on. So that's included. The standardization and matching, so you only get this with the platform version or the paid version. So being able to do probabilistic matching of your data based on matching rules like Jarrow, Winkler, Levenstein, and you don't ask me what those are. You can Google, but it's really a computation and the probability of whether data is a match or not. Being able to enrich, so there's a lot of components, connectors within Talend that you can leverage, including, for example, like just check for Google address. Being able to monitor that data, discover it, measure the quality of the information, and then operationalize that. So the whole data quality is continuous thing that you kind of have to do. Again, new source come in, new data, and new rules are required. So, are you familiar with Talend Cloud as well? Yeah. So Talend Cloud is our platform as a service offering. So what that means is that typically, if you're familiar with the on-prem system, you need like a Talend administration center where you need to manage your users and schedule and all of that. So if you don't want to create your own on-prem infrastructure, you can subscribe to Talend Cloud. So it's a multi-tenant application where we provide you with cloud engines for you to run your jobs. So for example, if you're purely doing cloud to cloud, Salesforce to like a cloud database, why do I need to set up a cloud on-prem system to run my jobs? So this would be a good way for it. So we started the Talend Cloud primarily for the integration pieces, but we've slowly added the data preparation, the data stewardship within it that you're actually going to see, and I'm going to demo it to you as well. And I just added some slides here about Talend Cloud. And is it okay if I just kind of talk to you a little bit about it as well? So this kind of the idea with Talend Cloud. So you use the same Talend Studio that you may have, and there's an option within your studio to publish the job to your Talend Cloud. Then you log into the Talend Cloud interface, and then you're going to see your job, or what's called the flow. And then from there, you can say, I want to run or schedule the job. So again, the only thing that's installed, Talend that's installed on your server, or would be the Talend Studio on your laptop to develop your jobs. But everything would be running on the cloud. So if you're doing cloud to SaaS application, then it's we provide you with that cloud engine to run those jobs. So the question then is, what if you have data that's on-prem or on the firewall? Typical servers or other integration solutions, what they do is they ask you to open up a port from here so that their cloud engine will be able to connect to your on-prem system. So the way we do it is that, if you're familiar with the on-prem system, there's a concept of a job server or distant run where we can push the job to another server for execution. So it's the same idea, we just call it remote engine on the cloud. And in this scenario, you can say, this particular job that needs to connect to an on-prem system, I'm going to use that remote engine to run it. So the jar file that we develop, the executable will be pushed to this remote engine. And then this remote engine will, because it's now on-prem, it would have local access to your database. So if you're doing database A to database E, then it will just move data between the servers. And the only thing that's going to be sent back to the cloud will be the log information. So no data goes through. So if you're like into security, I don't want my data to be on the cloud. Really, the only thing that's running in the cloud or seeing is just the log information and then managing it. And this could also be going from your database to cloud. A lot of customers are now moving into moving to a cloud database like Snowflake, for example, or Redshift or Azure data warehouse. So this one way they can achieve this to do some kind of a lift and shift to move their data warehouse into the cloud. And so the idea also the same. So this next slide is actually slightly different. The only thing that's different is that this remote engine concept will also work if you have your own virtual private cloud. So if you stand up your own kind of servers on the cloud, and the same idea will apply. You install what's called the remote engine, and it will be in your private cloud, and you will have access to your servers. Also, so I mentioned a while ago, you have to open up a port, right? It's not the case actually. So when you install the remote engine, we provide you with an SSH key that is going to be used by the remote engine as the hash to connect to the Talend cloud. So you use that as an encryption key. So the connection will be initiated by this remote engine to a specific cloud URL. We take that key. When it connects to the server, what's the key you're using? So we authenticate that, or we connect that to your account because we know which key we gave it to. And then there will be now a bidirectional connection between this service and here so that we can push the job for execution as well as the logs are being sent. Any questions on this? Sure.
So when you're pushing the job, how about it's a cluster?
Sorry?
If there's a cluster.
If it's a cluster? So if it's like a Hadoop cluster, big data cluster, typically you install this on, say, your edge node. And then it would be as if, think of it's like another Talend job that would just submit it to that edge node. And we will just run it from here, connect to your Yarn cluster, to Yarn through your big data cluster. So it would be the same. But
What I'm saying is, the jar get distributed on the Talend cluster, or is it
yeah, so Talend, so Talend is a code generation tool, so it can generate Java, MapReduce, Spark Streaming. So if it's a big data job like MapReduce, Spark Streaming, you can tell Talend to use Yarn. So we connect to Yarn client, and Yarn will distribute it to the cluster as to whatever nodes it need to scale it to. But if it's a Java job, then it will just run on this remote engine.
Is there any data movement towards Talend Cloud, or is it completely agnostic? Like, is it completely unaware of the data?
It's unaware of the data. When you on the cloud engine we give you your own instance of. So this cloud engine is always up. It's dedicated for you, and your data really just runs. So even if it's a multi-tenant, the cloud engine where your data is being processed. So for example, and this is Salesforce to Snowflake, for example. even though the job is running here and the data flows through here, this is like dedicated to kind of your to your environment. It's not like an engine that's shared with other customers, for example.
Can it be bounded by a virtual network?
I think that would be not here. If you need it that way, then you'd probably have to create your own client through like a virtual private and then install on a remote engine, right?
These are questions that our customers usually ask whenever they look at any sort of a cloud-based, either even storage or integration system.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Geeta, you had a question? Sure.
Cloud. Whenever we want to create job, it should be created in Talend Studio. We cannot create job in Talend Cloud.
Correct.
No, we cannot.
You cannot. Right. You create it in the studio, and then you publish it to the cloud. Yes.
I'm more interested in knowing what this remote engine you talked about. Like, is it so these logs you said about, right? The data logs which will be stored in the remote engine that will be sending data to the Talend Cloud. Is that what you mean?
Just the log information, like how.
Logging, like is it like the change in the data we do on our on-premise system, or will it capture the data also and send it to the cloud? Like how will that be created?
Operational data, how long did it run, how many
Yeah.
records were affected, things like that. So not your data.
Not your data.
Still, I'm not sure. Like, it's not really working like an SMTP, right? Secure FTP server, remote engine. I'm still, it's.
What's sent to the remote engine is just the job itself, the executable. And then once the executable is sent here, then it'll be executed on this remote engine.
Like the data and send it to cloud. Is that how?
If you're doing on-prem to on-prem, then no data is sent to the cloud. Because within your executable or jar file, you say, connect JDBC connection to this local host A, server A to connect to server B, then that will just be here to here, right?
The remote engine will need some data storage where it will store the data and then send it.
No. It really just like executes the job, runs the job. Yeah.
If you have custom logging, I think, with your own data, like for debugging purposes, that might get sent, right?
If you have custom.
If you customize the logging and it then captures some.
Yeah. Then right. Like. Yeah, depending on the logging, it may be more verbose and but yeah. So yeah.
In the cluster, if you have things like its own security access mechanism,
Right.
the SSL, whatever you are putting over there, will it have an impact or will it have any problem? Like for example, Ranger. If there's a Ranger out there, the connectivity will be a problem.
No, so we use like the native. So think of it like if I was going to develop a hand-coded job, like what would be kind of the mechanisms that I need to do, and that's really what Talend provides. Really, just like a GUI interface that would generate you that same code.
The component, you actually hardcode the access mechanism for the cluster.
You could, but there's other ways to go around it. Like for example, during runtime, you pick up those user IDs and passwords from somewhere, and then that's so it's only read during execution, for example. So there's different ways you can do that. Okay, kind of moving on. So one thing that we have is the Talend data preparation. So it's a self-service, data integration and cleansing solution. So it's a web-based application, whether you're using on-prem or cloud. So business users will be able to do their own self-service and data cleansing. So we're going to kind of go through that. Next is data stewardship. So it's part of the data quality. One of the things that you kind of want to see is like some kind of a workflow or remediation by other users, because there are data that kind of falls in between where I'm not really sure. I can automate a lot of the stuff, but there's some stuff I want certain users to manually do a check or verification, and that's what you can send to the data stewardship. And once those users manually validate the data, then they can be sent back to whatever target whether go back to your actual target or go sent back to the source. It really depends. And then the other thing that's that I was going to show you quickly is, so we have a Talend metadata manager / data catalog. So this is our metadata management solutions. One of the things that we've added, and the reason I added for data quality is we've added this within the data catalog capability is the profiling and semantic data discovery type workload. So the idea is being able to, in a central place, harvest all your metadata, and within that, be able to profile that information as well. So I'll show you some of those. Any other question? Okay, we're good. 6:30. I think I have to sit down for this. It's hard to move the mouse and then type. So, okay. So for the agenda, so we're going to go through the, again, data preparation, data quality. That includes data stewardship. Then I'm going to show you real time. So if customers not familiar, like with, you're probably just familiar with Talend being a, ETL, batch tool. So there are capability to do like real time as well. Create your own service and then use that for data quality. And then I'll show you quickly the data catalog. So for kind of the first scenario, so I have a kind of like a file that I can get from from S3, and then this user applies like these data quality rules for self-service, and then I'm gonna basically create a Talend job that would dump that into Microsoft Azure, and then take that job that I created locally and operationalize that and push it into Talend Cloud for execution. Because this is like a perfect use case for that, because it's pretty much just cloud-to-cloud type workload. So let's bring up my Talend. That's not the job that I want. So this is the Talend GUI interface. If you're not familiar, oh, sorry. I wanted to go data prep. Okay, data prep. So to access data prep, I'm going to use the data prep on the cloud. So it's just a URL, Talend Integration Cloud. And from here, I'm just going to log in once I can connect. Okay. So I'm just logging in as Elmer. So you'll notice, so there's a option for data preparation. So depending on so there's a management console where you define all your users and roles. So depending on the roles that your admin gave you, then you might see all of it or just some. So I'll just go to the data. Sure.
This management console, is that TAC?
So that's the equivalent of TAC. So TAC, what you call it on-prem, and kind of like management console on the cloud, right? So it's kind of synonymous, right? So you'll see, so first thing we're gonna do is what's called a data set. And within a data set, so I'm gonna try and add a data set that I need to work with. So the idea is I'm a business person, I need to do some kind of like self-service data cleansing. So the data set could come from a local file on my laptop, like a text CSV, for example, Excel. It could come from a Talend job. So what that means is that you can create a Talend job that pulls data from whatever, because Talend can connect to whatever, pretty much everything, and prepare that data for data preparation. And what it is, so that when you click on the Talend job, you'll see the job name. And when you say, yeah, I want to use that, under the covers, the Talend job will run, get the data, and prepare it for data prep, right? So using a Talend job, you can have full control of what data you want but you need the license for Talend. You can connect to a database, you can connect to S3, or you can connect to Salesforce. So depending on where it is, you'll have like different icons here. So the data that I want to work with is just this credit marketing. So I'll click on that. So what it did, so credit marketing is really just a kind of like this, no, not that one. It's like a CSV file. Sorry, if I can find it. Okay, I can't find it. Anyway, so it's just like a CSV file. So what it did was picked up the column names, because like the header, and under the column names, you'll see like a semantic type. So in this case, it's a Visa card. So it picked up that the contents of this column looks like it's a Visa card number, right? And then under the type, then there's green, white, and orange or yellow. So green means that 70, in this case, 702 valid values, or 70% of the values, and we have 1,000 rows. Excuse me. 70% match that U.S. phone number. So white means it's blank or empty, and orange means they're invalid values, so they're invalid phone numbers. So you kind of just go through it. If you see that, this like a zip, that's not a French postal code. That's actually, so you can change that as well. So it's actually U.S. postal code, which is pretty much, I didn't know initially. I didn't know that French postal code has the same kind of format. Anyway, so yeah, that's a U.S. postal code. Or you can just say, oh no, that's just regular, integer values. You can do so as well.
So it can check the postal codes?
No, it just looked at the format of the data, like
But
it kind of
it's
matches.
correct or not, it's something else.
So it doesn't validate the postal code if it exists. It's just the format at this point, right? Anyway, so once you oh, sorry, go ahead. Sure.
You did a mapping, right? Like, it didn't just guess the semantics here. Or
It guessed it.
Oh, it guessed it?
Right. Yeah. So when you import the data, it will do that guessing. So for example, if I let's say kind of like, so within here as well, you'll see like a row count of the values, how many distinct, how many duplicates. So it's part of the ingestion or import of this data set. It will do these checks prior to displaying the information. You can go to pattern and all of that.
Semantics, are they like, is there a library of them, or are they picked up from a glossary or something?
Right. So when we exit, I'll show it to you the list, but it comes with 40 semantic types that are built into the product, but you can add your own as well, right? So yeah, so once you've added your own, then you will see your semantic type, like if you're like account code, whatever specific format, then you're automatically going to see that COL005 matches this account code type, right? So you'll see all of that. Then, so it talked about this. Then these are the functions that you can do within the column. So for example, like I can do a mask, for example, here. I can just like search for, I can do a scroll of the information, or I can like just type mask data. And if I kind of just highlight, you'll notice it went to yellow, and then at the top it has preview. So it kind of, oh, that's what it would do if I change. So if I click on here now, it will change it or apply the masking for this particular column. I should have a lot of jokes in between, while I'm waiting.
I have a question.
Sure.
What was the maximum number of records that this was tested with? What happens? We have 50
Right.
million records and
Right.
1,000.
Right. Yeah. So under the I'm not sure if there's a maximum per se, but because it also depends on how wide the table is, and all that, how many columns, and but typically you would want to So the idea is you would want to do a sample first,
Got it. Okay.
and then get the rules, and then kind of add more data. So you go through. So you go through this. So like I'll go to change like remove trailing leading characters, like the white space, and submit, for example. And as you'll notice, as I'm doing all this, the data, the steps that I'm doing are going through the left side. So this becomes what's called the recipe, or the steps how you would clean that data. I'll just add some more, so I'll say clear these values, because I need to speed up.
And another question. So
Sure.
this is available on the cloud. Is there a version that can be installed on cloud?
Yes, there is. So yes. So pretty much when you run the installer, so it's like one of the ticky marks. Do I want to install the data preparation? So it will just be running under like a Tomcat, and then you just hit it using a specific URL, port number, and it's the same. It's same thing, right? Anyway, so you can also do a change some of the values here, like Ohio, and apply it to all. And you can also do lookups as well. So I'll do a lookup. So it'll open up a lookup table. So I need to highlight, so this column and this column, that would be like the lookup keys. And then I want to add this to the data set, confirm. Right.
And this comes with the OpenStudio installer or the license?
The license version, yeah, not with OpenStudio. But there is a trial version. I'm not sure if it's free or trial for data preparation. Right. Anyway, so once you're done, I'm not going to go through a lot of the others. You can close this and create a new preparation. So I'll call it DQ meetup 2, whatever, because I have a meetup already. Oh, I forgot. So from here, the user can also do an export. I forgot. Well, you can do manage version. So for example, I'm satisfied with this. You create a version that you can modify so that you have a way to go back to like the previous version. So from here, the user can export. So you can export to CSV, Excel, to a Tableau, to S3. So the idea is that the business user wants a quick way to clean data and then share it with others. They can do so. They just import it, and once they're done, they export the data, right?
Yeah, Elmer,
Yes.
I can't read it there. Can you export that to GitHub or like SVN? Or do you have to use
Are you talking about the recipe? So the recipe can be called, and I'll show you next, within a Talend job, that can then will then be on GitHub. So I'll close this. So you got your preparation. So the semantic types, Nabil, so this is where you can add your own. So there's like a bunch of, and you can also import like if you have an existing. Anyway, so one of the things you probably didn't see is, well, I want to schedule this, right? So that's coming. We requested for that capability. So how do you run this now? So you want to operationalize this. So the business user gets this data every week. Like I don't want to go into the data preparation and apply this, go through the recipe again. So what you can do is create a Talend job that will apply those data preparations. So one of the components that you get is this T-data prep run. And within this, you can see that you can call the preparation that you just did. So, so you're all familiar with Talend. So I'm basically just getting a file from Amazon S3, and then I'm getting the file that I'm getting. I'm pushing it to this T-data prep run, and I'm just using my login credentials. So I have that meetup there, but so if I click in here, it's just going to go through and list all the preparation that was done. So this would be the meetup 2 that we just created. So what this means is that all it needs is the input file, and all the steps, the lookups, the cleansing, will be applying those rules that you applied within that recipe. So the ETL guy who needs to do all these preparation does not need to recreate those rules that the business just did. All they need to know is just which preparation did you do? Tell me the name, and I'll call it, and I'll just feed it with the right data. So the data on the left can be file, could really be any of these connectors that Talend has, right? So in this particular example, I'm just getting it from S3, and then I'm writing it to an Azure blob. So if I run this, so it's building the job. So I'm running it locally on my laptop.
In the data preparation component, can you specify, like, can you export that preparation as an XML and after that import it in the job?
Not import on the job, but you can export as a JSON the preparation.
Get it in the job, or you have to connect to the integration server?
You have to connect to the integration server. Although one of the things you could do is you can do dynamic preparation, where you can pass in the name, dynamically pass in the name to the job. So as long as you know the name, so it could be a context variable that you just pass. So it's kind of the same.
Yeah, no, in our case we have a bunch of firewalls, you name it, and...
Right. So yeah, so the job ran, so it pulled it into, so it created this dprep now. So if we're kind of going to look at it, right, so it will have the like lookups, like Arkansas and so on. So this is the cleansed data, right? So just quickly now as well, what if I wanted to run it on the cloud? So all I need to do, so we talked about the Talend Cloud, so I just do publish to cloud. And now when I go into in here, I just select integration cloud. So I have that same data prep job. So if I look at it, so it's the same job, right? So if I delete this file, so I just so I just deleted that blob. So now if I'm going to run it from the cloud, not delete. So I can run this job now. So now this is all running in the cloud using the cloud engine, and it's gonna do basically the same thing.
What's the engine behind it? It's the Talend engine, or it's got some other, I don't know. It runs on some database.
So the cloud itself? No, it's just because it's just Java. Yeah, it just generate Java.
Excuse me, in that example, you upload the data, the input data to cloud, or you use remote engine to do that? The thing you ran. There was an input file. That input file.
Oh, it came from because the job itself is getting it from S3, and then putting it locally, and then putting it to Azure Blob. So I don't have any data. So the job also pulled it from S3, and then also wrote it to Azure Cloud. So there's no on-prem or there's no local file that I'm working with. You have a question?
Yeah. Like, why do you need to design the job using Talend Studio? Why can't you just design it in the cloud as well? I understand the engine part where it could be like remote here,
Right.
like switching, all of these.
So you're basically asking why we don't have a cloud interface?
Yeah, design. That's a lot missing piece.
I'm asking the same. Yeah, it's coming. It's coming. After you buy, it's gonna be there. Yeah. Well, we've asked for that. So we've if you go into if you go into our website, there's something that we're releasing, something called Talend Data Streams. The idea is a data scientist can build pipelines through the cloud where you can connect to databases, S3, but instead of Java, it uses Python. So that's kind of our first foray to that web, and whether the full studio, because there's a lot of power within the studio, whether it can be full in the cloud, I'm not sure. Maybe a subset of it, but we'll see.
Sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
So I'm just, this isn't so specific to the cloud offering that you're
Sure.
to the development environment. Can you parameterize some of these things so that S3 file?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think I even and this is not a very good example, but like for example, this S3 key and password, or this could be the S3 file. So these are what's called context variables that can be passed during runtime, right? So yeah, so this could be, maybe I'm getting the S3 file has all the user ID, password, and that's like where I use as parameters to my yeah. So you,
Data structure that's put in place to consume and comprehend that S3 file.
right.
Can you also generate metadata at runtime? Meaning when you've consumed that file from S3 and it's read and it's done some processing and it's handling over whatever unit of work it's carried out to the next component. Does the next component have the ability to look at the metadata of the file and generate its own metadata at runtime?
So depending on the metadata, so for example, so there's a T-file properties, for example, where it could go through the metadata of the file. You can monitor the link itself, so it'll give you like metrics of how many rows it kind of read. So those kind of are information that can be stored on the database that you can retrieve kind of as part of the next process. So you can do some of those, yes.
What I was sort of leading towards is when every time this program the S3 file might have 10 fields. I'm guessing the data structure can also be bounded. So if it's reading file A, you could use data structure A. If it's reading file B, you could use another data structure every time.
There are ways to do dynamic schema. So for example, with the file could be like a delimited file, so you can make it dynamic in such a way, like if there's like a header. So there are ways to do that. But typically, it likes having metadata. It kind of gives you more flexibility with that. Okay, so I only have half an hour. Okay, so we'll speed up. So next is the data profiling. And then I'm going to show you how after you do the data profiling, you can run like matching jobs and go through the data stewardship and so on. So where do we go? Profiling. So within Talend, it basically has an Eclipse-based framework, right? And then there's different perspectives. And depending on again, if you're just using OpenStudio, you're probably just going to get integration. If you have like the paid version, you're going to get the profiling perspectives. And then we also, if you're not aware, like we also have MDM, master data management. But anyway, so you go to profiling perspective, and then you'll have access to your metadata. So for example, I'll just pick one of the database here, and then you can see your tables. And then you can just say, you know what, I want to do like an analysis for a profile or column analysis for that particular table. You can also work with like Hive tables if you want. So I have some analysis here, so I'll just pick one. Say for example, this employee column analysis that came from I think a MySQL. So it will give you your data, what it looks like, the columns. And then once you have your data, there's something called indicators. So indicators would be what types of tests that you're going to do, or data profiling tests. So if you click on indicators, so there's like all these. So it's really just a matter of putting a check mark on the column and the indicator that you want. So there's all these statistics that you want. Like, so you can do text, give me the length, give me summary, mean, median, give me patterns, phone number. You can also create your user defined, so you can create your own regular expressions and interrogate your data and so on. So once you're done, you're done? Okay. So once you're done, so you got your indicators, and you basically just click on run. And once you do a run, you're going to see the analysis results.
But the run happens on your local machine, or there is a process? So for example, let's say you have a Hive table.
Right.
Do you use the Hive or use your...
Right. So it runs on my machine. If it's Hive, there's two execution engines. There's Java, or SQL. SQL is bad because under the covers it uses HiveQL, so it becomes MapReduce. Like, that's going to be slow, so it's Java. So if it's Java, then it's just going to be running kind of from my laptop. So this is just the initial analysis. Like, okay, I want to run this. I get an idea of what the data looks like, right? So you get distinct counts and all these graphs. So you get an idea of what the job will do. However, if I want to run it more frequently, then what you need to do is generate what's called a report. So when you click on your report, okay, and when you click on your report, that's also where, if I want to send it to, like, I want to run it frequently, I want to dump it to Excel, I want to dump it to a PDF, or so you can say generate an output file, put in a folder. Okay, what type of output do you want, right? And then just put in the folder name. What you can also do is you can dump the data results into, say, a database. So you can use dashboards to view the information. So when you run this, say for example I want to output it, dump it to a PDF, then it will generate you the PDF. But again, you want it to be more recurring. So what you can do now is you can generate a job. So after you have the report, you click on generate a job. So when you click on that launch report, what it will do is it will give you a job, actually like a two-component job that will just run that report. And this is now the job that you will then...
Oh, so you're back in integration, you create the job, and that's it.
Right. Right, so this is now the job that will dump it that PDF, right, and dump the results to that database. But this is now this is the job that you would schedule to using your own scheduler or whatever.
Job, right?
Yeah, this is just a standard job, right? So this would just be this TDQ report run, right? So that's kind of how you would do it.
Can you profile a file or a table without actually seeing the data or moving the data?
Well, you run the job on the...
Without moving the data?
Test data set, and after
Ye-
that you run it in production only.
Yeah, that's probably what you would need to do, like
No,
because your mask information, for example, or
No,
is it?
but for example, you want to profile something like data that is confidential or restricted. So you don't have access to it, but the profiler could have access to the actual repository where the data is.
Oh,
You just want to see the results. You don't really want to, you don't have access to the data, but you can profile it and see the results. Like QA does.
that's because how would you make sense of the results if you don't know what the data looks like?
The schema. So you know the schema. You know what type of data is there. You know there is credit card number you don't have access to, but they
Right.
want to be able to profile it for quality reasons and other
Right.
statistics.
Yeah. I have to think about. I know there should be a way, but
You
yeah,
have
just
data in production, but you don't have access to it. But you can toggle it
right,
if you have the rights to run this job on that.
right. Either someone will set it up for you
Exactly,
beforehand,
someone
right?
that has
Yeah,
the rights to it,
and then someone else will
and
run
then
it,
you
right?
just get the report sent somewhere.
Right. One last thing that I wanted to show you here is that you can also do match analysis. And match analysis is where you can identify, duplicate data. And so you have basically what's called these matching keys, and you specify, okay, and what's kind of matching function you wanted to use, like Jaro, Winkler, whatever. And in the end, what it's going to do is give you a score. Like, so anything below 75, so it's 1 is the highest total duplicate. Anything below 75 will be not a match, so what's kind of called unique. And then there's like between 75 and 0.9 would be like someone where kind of in between, where I may want someone to manually take a look at it, and so on. So when you look at the analysis results, it'll give you like suspect records, match record, unique records, and so on, right? So it'll give you kind of those statistics. So sure.
Can I see the exception results from this? And is there a way I can export that results, from the report instead of going to the analysis?
So export this results to like a.
I want to see the exceptions. Let's say 10% isn't for the rule that you specify. Can I see the detailed records that don't follow that?
Oh, right. Yeah, so you could. So you want to see the data itself?
Yeah.
Um,
Not following the rules or more like a geometry.
right.
You can, in the analysis where you can right click and see the exceptions. But
Right.
is there a way I can do it from the report, not from the analysis?
Yeah, I have to find that. I'll get back to you. Yeah. So one thing you can do is you can export these results, export match, right? Like say put in a match name. So now next is I'm going to show you how you use that job. So I'll go into the integration. And now I have this kind of, it's a busy job, but to simplify it, I'm basically just taking data from multiple sources, like a file, a Hive, MySQL, and then I'm dumping it to, I'm doing some kind of standardization rules. So if you're familiar with TOS only, then this is what's called a joblet, right? So a joblet is like an encapsulated piece of code. So if you kind of blow it up, so you can reshare this particular joblet with other code. So they just appear as under joblet design here. So other jobs can leverage it without having to redo it. Anyway, so you have this match group. So this is the same kind of match that I kind of did, where I imported the match rules, and kind of the same thing. And the output of this match group, there's unique rows, survive. So these are the duplicate. So if they're duplicate rows, how do I want to survive them? So you can apply these various rules like, give me the most common name, or give me the most recent, most complete, longest. So there's different rules on how you would survive the row. So again, what the survivorship did was, from the matching, I figured out that these rows are duplicate. Now I want to collapse them to a single row. So how do I want to collapse the single row? So these are the rules that I apply. So for first name column, take the most common. So if there's 3 input values, so if there's 2 of them then I'll use the most common, right? The most number. Anyway, so you can apply these rules. And then there would be rows that will fall into, I need someone to manually take a look at it. So that's what where we would send it to the data stewardship. And so I have this other job here. And so that would just load it to data stewardship console. Right, so I have like a kind of like similar to the T data prep run. I have something called the T data stewardship where I pass in I log in and so on. So let's run this job. But before I run it, I wanted to go to my stewardship and look at my task. So there's no task yet. So now if I run this, so it's just running locally. It's just.
Does it mean the file is local?
Sorry?
Does it mean the file is local, the one that you are doing the match, or the files?
Oh no. So I'm actually connecting to a Hive database. I have like an Embario on, like a Hortonworks cluster on the cloud that I'm using, that I'm connected to. So yeah. So it's So there's 13 rows that were sent to the conflict. So now if we go into my stewardship, so now I got my data. So these were the kind of the rows where, you know what, I want someone to kind of, manually take a look at information. So the idea is now, so these were the rows that we were not able to survive or collapse, where I want someone to kind of manually take a look. So now we're going to try and build this golden record. So for example here, you know what, Anna should be the name, or Abby should be the city. And once I'm satisfied with that, I click on the lock. That means it's gone, or I've resolved that. And you'll say 20% is done. I can also, if I have other groups, I can say assign that task to another user. I call it data steward, right? So if there's like a long list, I can't finish this, hand it over to someone else. So when the other data steward logs in, he'll see all these other rows, right? So anyway, so let's kind of click all this. Let's it doesn't want me to, because it's invalid phone number. So I'll validate all of that. So now it's resolved. How do I pick it up? So now there's another process called, there's another job that you can run that will basically pull that information. It's basically all the resolved. So now we got this component here for getting the resolved task, and now we're putting it into this case to HBase. But the idea is that once it's resolved, you can send it back to the source, or you can now dump it to your warehouse, whatever that target is. So if I'm just gonna kind of run it, because I just did a demo for a customer with HBase, I put in HBase. So now there's going to be 5 rows that it's going to be pulling and then writing it into HBase. But again, that could be a database just to HDFS.
So the architecture on this one, I mean, in our case, we have a Hadoop cluster,
Right.
and that's it. So that's the processing engine. Would this work? Because this is doing, I mean, I've seen most of these, they rely on Java. Not really.
Yeah, so these are Java jobs. So they would not leverage the the Spark or MapReduce, for example. So if I go into my cluster here, admin. So I have this file. So this is the 5 rows that we pulled, right? So these were the anyway. So yeah, so these were the 5 rows. So it puts it on HBase. So again, that could have been going back to your source. Any questions on this piece?
So how does this line up to your master data management solution?
Sorry?
Whatever you showed was like a mini piece.
Yeah, that's right.
Line up to your master data management solution.
So the main difference, so master data would provide you with where you can build like central data model for what a customer, so all attributes plus all the services on top of it. So what I just showed you is like how I can get a customer 360 of quality data, but it's up to you how you build the the services on top of it, like so to get a full master data. But the Talend master data management solution leverages the same things that I showed you, right? Sorry, you had a question.
So that whole process when you set it off with data steward, when you're just taking, so you're just converting some rows, putting it into some sort of data store, and essentially you've got a data editor that your data steward then is fixing it up. So you have to add some code to stick it into the data store. And then once it's fixed up, you're gonna add some more code, you can put it into your eventual target or back into the source or whatever. There's nothing magic happening, you still gotta put a lot of code around it.
So it really simple. So it provides you with a simplified way wherein so there are components that will kind of put that in, as well as that kind of built you that web portal and with security on who would have access to it. So so those would be the but in the end they're still all Talend jobs that get generated under the covers to do all these steps.
So if those rows were in fact dimension type logic, you still have to add some later on dimension logic in order to fit it in and then generate the data feed and work patterns and blah, blah, blah.
Correct. It is really just preparing it for someone to kind of make a look at it, and then whatever the destination has to be, you still have to do that formatting to write it in. Okay. So now the question is, I know you got data quality, but I want to do it kind of in real time, right? I want to use some kind of services where I want to call some APIs and use those matching that you've done and so on. So Talend as well has that same capability wherein you can create RESTful services or SOAP services. So let me open it up. So this is just an example of a job. So within Talend, you can create, in this example, all I need to do is put in a REST request, and then so this REST request, it's listening on a REST endpoint like localhost port number, and I'm using an HTTP GET whatever, but I can also put post, so you can build all of that. And in this scenario, I'm using the fuzzy match component, and within this fuzzy match component, let me maximize this. Within this fuzzy match component, I can also, import the same matching rules that I may have created using the data profiling a while ago, right? But the matching rules would be, in this example, it's just fairly simple. It's just that I'm basically matching the account name that I'm getting from the web service, and doing a gyro lookup to my master data, and I'm just mucking up some data here, so I kind of have like imagine this like your master data list. So the idea is a web service where maybe customer entry, and you wanted to check if they already exist in the database, right? And to do that, instead of an exact match, because they may be typo, you want to do some fuzzy matching. So that's what it will do, and then send back the response saying, yep, I found you, or no, you're not there. So if I'm just going to run, oh, it's already run. We'll run it again. So you get this if you have the data services license of Talend or the ESB component. So if we go into, so Talend also just purchased a company called Restlet, and they do like kind of API testing and eventually API management. So I'm just using their plugin to a browser. So from here I can say, so I just put into the same URL that I have on the job. So if I say, pass this on, if I do a send, so it's pulling all that information from that lookup table, right? So if I kind of change this to Robert Smith, whatever, then it'll pull that. But if I put in, I'm not here, so so it would not know content, and so the response would be based on how I coded it. But you can see that within Talend you can create a real-time job service that leverages that data quality. Any questions? Okay. Ooh, we're making time. Cool. Okay, so lastly is I was going to show you the kind of the data catalog component of Talend. So the data catalog is part of our Talend Metadata Manager, and it's the ability to bring in all metadata from pretty much whatever you may have, and I'll show you, the brokers and connectors we do. And part of the new capability is to also do like data profiling and semantic type. So I'll go into my Talend Metadata Manager. So I'm just going to log in. Right. So yes, it's a web-based application. So this is more for data governance primarily, right? Being able to understand what kind of data data catalog, right? What data you have on your system, be able to do data lineage, impact analysis, and so on. But I'll just focus on the data. So I logged in, I looked at this configuration, I'll go through my databases. So I have this, is this the one? Okay, I think this is the one.
Which version is that one?
Oh, this is the 7. Yeah. I have to demo this to you. So you got your database, you got your tables. Let's just pick one table here. And so it'll pick up your constraints, and it will see all your columns. You will also have the ability now to see your profiling data. And it will also give you your sample data, for example. So when you bring it in, when you say refresh profiling data, so it will ask you, do you want to request profiling for all the rows, just 10,000, and it will give you like a sample, and then it will give you these results. And then if you go into look at your columns, so for example first name, so it will give you like your inferred semantic type, frequency, the various patterns and so on. as well. As well as giving you, again, this similarly, remember that semantic type from data preparation? So it's similar in here as well. Yeah. So data catalog, when you harvest the metadata, you'll see all of this information. But how do I actually harvest metadata? So the main power of the Talend Metadata Manager solution is really being able to harvest a lot more metadata than our competitors. And so if I just click in here, say click on New Model, what it would give me is open up a dialog where it will ask me what kind of model type that I want to bring in, what kind of metadata that I want to bring in. So you have access to metadata from, a lot, and I'm not even going to go through from, big data to generic JDBC, Irwin model, file systems, Cognos, DB2, competitors. I was selling this for 10 years anyway. MapBar. Anyway, so you have a lot of metadata, and so the idea of this Talend Metadata Manager solution being able to harvest metadata, and once you've harvested that metadata, be able to give you like a impact analysis and data lineage. So I'll just kind of go through that quickly. That if I search for an item here, so I'll search for glossary. I'll find relationships that's contained. I'll be able to see related reports. Okay, this particular term, business glossary, is related to this report. I can see semantic flow. So you can see that if I click here, if I click on the diagram here. So what am I looking at? So here, this is the term, vendor invoice number. So it's mapped to this term here. But it infers, or it's showing you that, this vendor invoice number is being populated by Talend, a Talend job called PO vendor invoice number. And this Talend job is picking the data up from this column, from this table, from this database. So if you're looking for vendor invoice number, you may have to also consider these other, columns here, because they're all interrelated, and that's really what this is. This is showing you.
And it infers these relationships from the values in the table, or
from the job, because your Talend job. At this time it only knows the term was linked to this column, but somehow this column was being populated or read by Talend jobs or SIS. So there's it infers that there's also a relationship that so for example, if you're looking for PII data, for example, then these other columns, because if I'm getting data from them, then that they may also be right. So it kind of gives you that whole, and the only reason it provides that is because I harvested metadata. So I harvested metadata from the tables, from the Talend jobs, from I have to bring everything in for it to kind of get a whole overall picture. Sure.
If we have some object in different databases,
Yes.
that really are the same thing, how can we show it even in different databases? The whole picture of the data in company.
Right. So within the once you've harvested the metadata, it will give you this is a diagram, and this is not a picture. This is rendered architecture diagram. But we can render or we can build you this architectural diagram if there's linkages between them. So for example, in your scenario, if I just bring in two databases, one my Sybase, one's my SQL Server, and no kind of job in between, there's nothing that would link the two. So someone has to say, yes, those are kind of linked. But if you bring in a Talend job and the Talend job reads this table from this column and lies here, then we will be able to give you that link. So when you look at the architectural diagram, you're going to see, that kind of the whole thing.
Even when you don't have that reach, for example, the tool has a mapping feature,
Right.
so you can do that.
He's the expert now. Like
It
yeah.
has?
Yeah, he's the yeah. No, so it has the mapping architecture. So you can build your own, kind of like an Excel. You can say, take this column and map, and you can actually use it to generate a Talend job in the end. So that's also a cool part. That may be a different topic. I think I'm going to stop here.